Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mayor, Council President, and thank you all of those who care about Boston and Cambridge enough to turn up to think about this afternoon. I'm honoured to be here as the British Consul General. I'm a guest in both cities. My residence is in Boston on Beacon Hill, where I get close to the politics and the finance, and my office is in Kendall Square. We chose the same building as Tim's Cambridge Innovation Centre because we wanted to be right at the heart of that innovation, and we're delighted to be a guest in both wonderful cities. And I commend the elected leaders for their initiative for pulling us together this afternoon. There are many challenges facing our elected leaders, and I commend them for creating this forum for us to discuss this. I have three very quick points, and then I'll get out of the way of the dialogue. First, we have a real stake in your cluster, and we have a consulate here in Boston, not just because Boston and Cambridge were founded by Brits 390 years ago. That's about as provocative as I'm going to get, Mr. Journalist. It's not because of the shared history, though that really matters. It's because Boston and Cambridge really matter. Now, I'm a British diplomat, so I'm part of a global diplomatic service, and we sit in London. We represent 1% of the world's population. We're in a minority, and we take a global perspective as to what's going on. Many would argue that the world is flat, and maybe in some ways it is flattening. But in terms of innovation, competitiveness, and economic futures, there's still some real spikes in the world. And as you sit in London and look around the world, what you have here in Boston and Cambridge is a true innovation spike. And that's why we have a consulate right here. Off the record, there were proposals that we should just cover Boston out of the New York consulate. But that didn't go down very well with the locals, and you can't actually cover this innovation cluster of Boston and Cambridge by sitting down there on the island of Manhattan. I think you have to be right here, a part of it, and that's why we still have a British consulate here, despite that. Thank you. I'm always delighted to be made welcome, because a lot of my job as British consul is to turn up at Bunker Hills and Patriots Days and other things. So thank you for that. Also, as we look globally, we realize that the real hubs of innovation and growth around the world are anchored by city regions right at their very heart. They draw on wider communities, but the very hub of them is crucial, and Boston and Cambridge need special attention in this context. Now, I don't just say this as a diplomat to be nice. I actually see this as part of my job with all the British companies that I see coming to Boston and Cambridge. My staff tell me that just over the last year, 1,000 new jobs were created in Boston and Cambridge by British companies setting themselves up here. We have a lot of large companies that have come here. For example, RBS owns Citizens Bank, National Grid, the utility, is British, also AstraZeneca and Shire, which has operations in Cambridge. We also see it happening in the opposite direction. We see Boston and Cambridge companies, when they choose to expand and develop themselves, go internationally, we see a lot of them come to Britain. State Street and Fidelity, all the way down to the Zipcars, Akamais and Enanox of the world. There's wonderful collaboration going on here, and it's amazing how many jobs are being created right here in your cluster, both by British companies coming to your cluster and your cluster's companies expanding and profiting by coming to my country. So that was point one. Point two is that we all face challenges. We've had the global downturn, we're starting to come out, but as I know our elected leaders know probably better than us, we're facing a jobless recovery. It's going to be out of real hubs of innovation like Boston, Cambridge, that future growth and future jobs will come. The challenge is that Professor Porter has been so successful with his cluster theory that the secret is out. People are copying this cluster approach, and we're seeing them growing up all around the world, and this is leading to some serious competitors. I think Mitch was exactly right to refer to the McKinsey report. China is basically growing cities the size of Boston and Cambridge every other year. We have some true competition around the world, and it is truly global. We also have challenges in Britain that you have here in the Boston-Cambridge cluster, in that we're a mature cluster. That means we have rather older infrastructure, whether it's the housing, the roads that were laid down as cow tracks originally, all the way through to the T systems that are a bit older, and they're heavily built and rebuilt communities. This is one of the challenges, but I think there are also strengths. So my third and final point is that there is good news. Boston and Cambridge have all that they need to prosper in the next phase. As we've already heard, you have the universities, you've got the hospitals, the tech companies, you've got the finance capital, great sports teams, everything you need to be a world-class cluster. But it's not inevitable that Boston and Cambridge will be one of those clusters that prospers. And I think this is where we put it back to our elected leaders. There are so many things that are given that we can't change. We can't change the weather, we can't change the geography. But I think, given all the ingredients you've got here, the challenge is going to be for us in the wider community to help you make the policy changes, whether it's planning, education, taxes, revenue, whatever it is. We need to support you with your shorter time frames and elections to make those difficult decisions. My final point is, coming from Britain, you'd expect me to say, we'd like to be a partner in this. We have a huge stake in the success of your cluster. We have many companies that are prospering here. We have many of your companies that have come out of your cluster to set up in Britain. So please consider us as a partner going forwards. Thank you very much.